Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Ataf Parikamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yeah, as I just mentioned, this kirtan, Jayanilo Prema Dhana, composed by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, is standard to sing by Gauriya Vaishnavas on the anniversaries of the disappearance of any great Vaishnava, such as we are celebrating today, the disappearance of Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Ashtotar Sadasri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. This song, like so many of Narottam Das's songs, expresses extreme feelings of separation, a feeling of hopelessness and almost despair, because these great personalities of Narottam Das sings, they've gone and I'm here. I can't have their association. And feeling every moment to be like 12 years or more in separation from them. So this is more intense than the hellfire burning. The fifth canto of Bhagavatam describes how sinful persons, they have to suffer in hellish planets. The Christian description of the hellish worlds is only burning in fire. In the Vedic descriptions there's more variety. Variety is the spice of life. There's a horrible situation, but the Vaishnava feels more intense pain in separation from great personalities than the conditioned souls do. Suffering, the suffering is more. So you may think, well, what kind of a religion is this? That Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach that the highest level is the separation, feelings of separation from the beloved, but it's painful. But there's a great sweetness there also, because in separation one becomes closer. If someone, in the materialistic concept of life, someone dies, then you feel distress because they're gone and there's no chance to re-meet with them, but to reunite with them. But in the Vaishnava understanding, yes, there is the great possibility to enter into those pastimes. And because these personalities live, they don't die. We don't say such and such a great Vaishnava died. He simply ceased to be manifest to our vision. He's present. As Srila Prabhupada wrote in the dedicatory words to his Srimad Bhagavatam translation and commentary at the outset of his taking up this magnum opus, massive work. He wrote, dedicated to my eternal spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. He lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. So although there is a sense of separation, which is intense, they're not having the opportunity to be with that person directly, but in another way one is with the person more directly by remembrance, and particularly by service, as Srila Prabhupada emphasized in this dedication. He lives forever in his divine instruction, and the follower lives with him. The follower lives with him by following the instruction. Srila Prabhupada at different times, once he said, I only had personal association, I only met with my guru maybe a dozen times. On another occasion he said maybe 5 times. Presumably he sat in classes more often, but actual personal meeting and interchange, exchange, very few times. But he always lived with him. As he said, that when I went to America, I didn't feel I went alone. We glorify Srila Prabhupada properly, that he went alone. But he said, I always felt my spiritual master was with me. And when one sannyasi, he sent him off to a very difficult place to preach, Taiwan. Very difficult in so many ways. Language, if you're just going there without knowing the language, and no one there. At that time, very few people knew English. The devotee who was sent was from America and only knew English. Sent alone and was experiencing difficulty being alone. And Srila Prabhupada said that for a sannyasi, he takes association of Krishna. He should feel that Krishna is with him. That's the meaning of his sannyas danda. That the Vishnu he feels the presence of Vishnu, therefore he is fearless to go in the forest alone. Who could go in the forest alone? In the previous days, the forest was very dangerous. Snakes, scorpions, bears, elephants, lions, tigers, panthers, wild boars. The merchant might go to try to find something for profit, something. The sadhus, they go to the forest. They find that the forest is better. Yataranyam tata griham. The home life he finds the home life is so disturbing that the disturbances of the forest, they're no worse. It's better to be in the forest. He finds that the materialistic society is so unbeneficial for his spiritual advancement that he goes to be alone in the forest. How can he do that with so much danger? Because he feels that Vishnu is with me, he's protecting me. So the devotees, they live with their guru, with all the gurus, all the Vaishnavas. They live with them even in their physical absence. But at the same time, there's a feeling of separation. So how is that? It's inconceivable. It's both currents are going on at once. As I just stated, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is a great acharya, but the word great, it's a proper word to use, of course, but words are insufficient to describe. Every acharya is great. The acharya who has 3 or 4 disciples and properly trains them, he is non-different from Krishna. At least the disciples must see him as such, and actually to the disciples, he is non-different from Krishna. Acharyang mang vijanayan navamanyeta karhi chitna martya buddhya suyeta sarvadeva maya guru. Lord Krishna stated that one should know very well that the Acharya is me. Srila Prabhupada in his translation states non-different from me. That is to stress the point how the Acharya is Krishna. He's non-different in the sense of being non-different. But the actual, if you see the actual Sanskrit, Krishna says, he is me. The Acharya is me. You should know very well, the Acharya is me. That also, now we're getting on to Guru Tattva. I should actually speak on Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, but the Uddhava also addressed Krishna, that Krishna, you're so merciful, you appear as internally as the Chaitya Guru, the Guru in the heart, and externally as the spiritual master to guide the disciple. So every Acharya is great. He's far, every Vaishnava, neophyte Vaishnava who rings the bell in the temple, who doesn't know more than this, even his position is far more exalted than any karmi, jnani or yogi. What to speak of sinful people or people outside the varnashram system. So we can try to use words to describe the Vaishnava. Even Krishna himself, who is the object of worship for all enlightened persons, actually for all persons. Some accept it and some don't. But even he finds himself, even though he's unlimited in all abilities, he finds himself incapable to glorify the Vaishnavas. So even if we are to speak objectively, and that means in a neutral way, even if some scholar of religion comes along, has no devotional motive, but if he studies Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he will find that compared to many other Vaishnava or other preachers, certainly his contributions were unique, unprecedented, and monumental. There's so much to say. It's difficult to know where to begin. We glorify Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tvishai Namaha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the most munificent among all the avatars, and they're all munificent, but he is the most munificent because he gives Krishna Prema, pure love of Krishna. So the pure love of Krishna, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to give, that is the whole subject of the Vedas, the subject of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He gives the process by which conditioned souls can come to the platform of experiencing Krishna Prema, the essence of that Krishna Prema is described by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Rupa Goswami is the foremost follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the sense that it was through Rupa Goswami particularly that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested his gift to the world and gave to Rupa Goswami the knowledge and the mercy by which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's gift of Krishna, giving Krishna Prema, can be perpetuated in the world. It's not just that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he gave Krishna Prema and then he left, and now there's no more opportunity. but the opportunity is still there. Going by the standard parampara system, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave that to Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami gave that in his teachings, in his books. So particularly, what is it that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give? That is pure devotional service, free from any material motivations. And Rupa Goswami defines that. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana kamadyanavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktirutama. The topmost level of devotion, both in the standard, in the state of sadhana, when one is not fully realized, and in the state of siddhi, where one actually attains perfection. This description is applicable. It's the topmost approach to devotional service. It's not a mixed approach. That's the difference. It's not approaching Krishna for any material gain. So that is without any other motive. It's not mixed. No desire for jnana, karma. Simply cultivating a sense of serving Krishna in a manner that is pleasing to Krishna. This applies in the state of sadhana, and in the state of siddhi, that anushilanam is, it's cultivation, but not in the sense of cultivation for the sake of gaining a result, because the result is already attained, but still one goes on practicing that to please Krishna in all respects. So Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Thakur is praised as Rupanuga Viruddhapa Siddhanta Dvanta Hari. He is that person who removed the darkness of all the wrong philosophical conclusions that cover those given by Rupa Goswami. So Gauriya Vaishnavas, they are Rupanugas. They claim to be in the line of understanding and practice coming from Srila Rupa Goswami. Now Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is praised as the destroyer of the wrong conclusions that cover the proper understanding of Rupa Goswami's teachings. So this is his greatest glory. We can say this is his greatest glory. This book is called Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava. So Vaibhava means glory. So this is his greatest glory. Of course, we can also say his greatest glory is he glorified Krishna and brought so many others to glorify Krishna. But he saw that in the matter of glorifying Krishna, it was necessary to remove the darkness of the improper conclusions that were inhibiting the proper glorification of Krishna. Sometimes it was suggested to him that if he would just stop being so heavy on and so critical of others, particularly other Vaishnavas, then all the Vaishnava community would follow him. It was suggested to him, indirectly via his disciples, that if there's no need for him to criticize like this. He can just glorify Krishna. He's so imbued with spiritual energy and knowledge of Shastra to glorify Krishna that all the Vaishnavas will accept him as their leader. There's no need to criticize like this. Just be positive, as we would say in modern parlance. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur detected that it was necessary to point out that pretty much all of what was going on at that time in the name of following Rupa Goswami was actually not to the proper standard of what Rupa Goswami came to give. He analyzed that what is this anyabhilashita shunya, and how others are not on that standard, although they think themselves to be, they profess to be. So this was a great shock for all the, what may be called traditional Vaishnavas. That, of course, we hear how some of them were very fallen, but many in the Goswami lines, especially those who Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur criticizes Jat Gosai, those who have, it means they're born in a family of people who are known as Goswamis. And Jat also means it is a social group. Just like you have a jati of Babas, you have a jati of potters, you have a jati of clerks, just like the Kayastas, you have a jati of warriors. So all professions there's a jati. So being a Gosai, being a Goswami, there's also one jati. But it's not like that. It is to be a Goswami means one is on a platform of spiritual fulfillment. It's not that just by being born in a family. Just like there is also there was a jati of Vaishnavas in Bengal, because, anyway, I described it in here, how the Vaishnavas, they declared themselves to be beyond the rules and regulations of the Varnashram system. So we're not part of that. So they just made another group. They became seen as another group. They're Vaishnavas. What do? They beg some money and they have sex with the female Vaishnavas, and who are also left society. They left society because they're thrown out for being adulteresses or whatever. And then so a woman is found that she's having a sexual affair with another man. She's thrown out of the home. Then she becomes a Vaishnavi. What else to do? There's no other recourse. Then she finds a Vaishnav Baba, some Babaji, and she serves him. And then they have some children, and then it becomes the Boshtam Jati. The Boshtam is what's the word? Transformation, corruption of the word Vaishnava. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I was talking about these Jati Gosais. So, as Srila Prabhupada points out in one purport, in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavatam, in this section, Shuchi Nam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Brashta Vijayate. The fallen yogi takes birth in an elevated family. So Srila Prabhupada points out that even up to the present day, there are families of acharyas. That they are by castes, if you consider in terms of caste or jati, which is more appropriate than the term caste, that they are acharya caste. So what does an acharya do? Well, he studies the Shastra, he initiates disciples, he does puja. So they were doing that. It is not that many were doing it. Maybe most of them were doing that. And it's still going on. There are still some. Just recently in Vrindavan, I met I went to the Radha Shamasundar temple, where the Mahant, he's in the line for the Gopi Balapur Mahantas. That's a family line coming from Rasika Ananda. And they're still going on. He still knows the Shastra, and he's organizing the temple. He personally dresses the deities every day. He's doing the work of an acharya. He told me when I went there, he said, when I went there to Gopi Balapur, he was still studying at school. Now so he went to his school, then he went and he's managing the temple. And in a devotional way. It's not just a profession. So there are still families of acharyas. So they were, that's another term that Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Prabhu used to use. Actually, at least this started with Bhaktivedanta. Bhaktivedanta attributed this term, Jat Gosai, to one Tota Babaji, who lived in Navadip. So Bhaktivedanta Thakur used that term. And then another term they also used was Prabhu Shantan. That means, Santan means child, and Prabhu means the Lord. So particularly the lines coming from Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu, Nityananda Vangsha, Advaita Vangsha, those, they are called Prabhu Santan, and they're different from the others, just like Gadadha Pariva, Narottam Pariva, and so on. They're also family line gurus. So that term was used often in Gauriya Math publications in a derogatory way, whereas previously, or up to that time, Prabhu Santan, great person, direct descendant of the Lord. And many of them, they're writing books, very learned, very expert in kirtan. They seem to be proper Vaishnavas in all respects. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he pointed out that to actually give what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give, the attitude of anyabhilashita shunya must be there. He detected that in their activities there was lacking this spirit of full dedication to Krishna only for his sake. And he did qualify that. He didn't say that, well, all of them are wrong, or all of them are bad. He wasn't against the gurus in the family lines initiating, but his point was they shouldn't do it in a business attitude or family maintenance attitude. That they will speak, I was saying many of them are learned, writing books, and common thing they did also was speaking. They performed the religious function in society, among the society of Gauriya Vaishnavas. When I said the Vaishnavas, they one jati, but it's complex, because the Vaishnava, Boshtam jati is, but there are also many Vaishnavas who were living in society, and they were not Boshtam, but they were whatever they were. They were many of the Shuvarna Vanik in Bengal, that caste, that means the gold merchants. Literally means gold merchants. Suvarna Vanik. So for some reason or other, which I don't know, someone could research it if they want, even though they're wealthy, dealing in gold, but somehow they're considered very low. I believe, does Prabhupada explain it somewhere? King Maharaj Balal saying at some point he had a great debt to them, and then he wanted them to just write it off, and they wouldn't, and therefore he condemned them to be Shudras and like this. So they're considered to be very low. Nityananda Prabhu uplifted them, and up to the present day, he made them Vaishnavas, and up to the present day, we'll find that community in Bengal, the gold merchants, they are Vaishnavas under the Nityananda Vangsha. They get initiated in that line. I don't know if it's still going on, but it was up until at least 30 years ago. It must be going on in some way or other. So, and someone, there are different castes in society. There'd be the grocer has a little shop. He may be a Vaishnava, or the potter. Many fishermen, many from the fishing caste, they're Vaishnavas. Weavers, those who hadn't been converted to Islam, mostly in Bengal, the weavers got converted to Islam, but they were mostly Vaishnavas. That's why you'll find in Swarupganj, just opposite to Mayapur, they're all weavers, because they came from East Bengal and they settled there. They wanted to be in Navadvip Dham, so they settled there, and you'll find they're doing that. Not with the handloom. So up to the present day, that caste, so they consider themselves Vaishnavas. So they all had someone was a weaver, someone was a fisherman, someone was a merchant, and then there was a caste of Goswamis who would fulfill their religious needs, as has been going on in India since time immemorial, not only in Bengal, but the priests, the Brahmins, they fulfill the religious needs of everyone. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he detected that in many cases it had become ritualistic, formalized. The spirit of service to Krishna wasn't there to the degree that he stated that it should be. If they're really, it's just like, for instance, some Goswami has 3 sons or whatever, and then they share the disciples among them after the father passes away. In the family line, Kula Guru, one man is initiated by Guru, and it's understood that his sons will also be initiated by the same Guru, or if the Guru passes away in the meantime, then they'll be initiated by the sons of that Guru, and it goes on generation by generation. So it has the possibility of degenerating into some kind of formality, that those who are giving the religious guidance, initiation, it becomes a formality. And I observed this myself, that in Bengal, that the family gurus, they would come around once a year to different people's places. They'd give blessings. You have to give dakshina to the guru, and maybe they'd speak a little bit something from Shastra, but not very urgent, that we have to give Krishna consciousness, how they'll raise up their disciples. They're not much concerned with whether their disciples are following very strictly or not, because they're afraid that if they say anything to the disciple, then the disciple won't want to follow them anymore. Why should I be a guru? There are so many other gurus. Not on, there's Aul Baul, Karta Bhaja. Karta Bhaja at that time was, at the time Bhaktivinoda Thakur was you can go and join some other sect. The Vaishnava, there were so many movements which came up in many Vaishnavas left. Many who are traditional followers of Vaishnavism, they saw the corruption of these gurus. They're just taking our money and they don't give us anything spiritual in exchange. So they went off to become Karta Bhajas, which they think at least the gurus there, they interact with the disciple. They have something to give them. They're concerned about them. They're not just religious tax collector, and he keeps it all for himself. So it was a widespread and noticeable phenomenon at that time. So, to continue. Ready? Yeah, or in the understanding of most people who consider themselves Vaishnavas, what they were doing is fine. They do kirtan, they discuss about Krishna. That's it. I remember that many years ago I had this traveling Sankirtan party in West Bengal. And one of the members had been recently initiated by Vaibhava Maharaj. And I was discussing how these bogus so-called Vaishnavas, they're eating fish and this. And he became upset and said, well, what's wrong? He said, our guru, he's identifying with his guru in his village. Our guru, he eats fish. All the Vaishnavas eat fish. Who are you to say they shouldn't eat fish? So their understanding of what it means to be a Vaishnava is not to the line, according to the line of Rupa Goswami. But they think it's right because that is what they understand to be Vaishnavism, because that's what they've grown up with. That's what everyone else accepts to be Vaishnavism. So Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Prabhu wanted to point out that the flow of mercy which Nityananda Prabhu on behalf of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought, Abadha Karuna Sindhu, Kartiya Mohan, he brought the channel of the love of Krishna, the ocean of Nityananda brought that. But the channel, the flow has become blocked up by these. How does it happen? Well, it probably wasn't that someone at some point sat down and thought, okay, let's make some scheme to pervert the Gauriya Sampradaya. It doesn't happen like that. Maya, generally, it doesn't happen like that. Maya has her own way of thinking, in which, in the words of Narottam Das, Ashattere Shatta Karimani, they take that which is not correct or true to be correct and true. And they can't understand, what's wrong? Everything's going on fine. Who is this guy to come in and tell us this is all wrong? What's wrong? We've been doing this all for generations. This is the way it should be. You might think that, well, if Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was preaching among others, he was preaching among traditional Vaishnavas, and if he pointed out that, well, actually this is not exactly to the standard, you should do without any personal desire, they don't even recognize it. Then they say, no, this is pure. We don't have any personal motive. They can't even recognize it in themselves. Therefore, you have to come to Shastra. But you'd think they'd be very pleased. Oh, thank you. We didn't understand. We're not doing it correctly. But instead, they think, we are doing it correctly. What's he talking about? Why is he making such a big fuss? We're happy, we're Vaishnavas, we come together, we have festivals, we chant Hare Krishna, we worship the deity in our home, everything's fine. Eating fish, well, we have a separate kitchen. For the deities, I've seen people, richer people, they keep one kitchen for Thakur. And one Brahmin, he cooks for the deities and offers. And one for the family. Separate kitchen. This separate kitchen business is very dangerous. Because separate kitchen means you can do whatever you like. And then whatever you like means there's fish and meat and who knows what else. But at least fish. You may ask, well, why was he so heavy? Well, it required to be heavy to point out, at least for the sake of, to create a doubt in people's minds. If you just say, well, actually that's not right. Well, I think it's right. Okay, we'll agree to disagree. But he didn't agree to disagree. That no, insistent, this, you're not doing it correctly. This is correctly. Why? This is exactly the line of Rupa Goswami. And of course, it wasn't just the fish eating part is the gross manifestation, but at all levels, there were the cross-dressers, the Shaki Beki, the bowels, all mixed up, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. And even those who are in the proper line and doing all the things properly, it might seem. The Goswamis, they would mostly, these Prabhu Santan, they would initiate people, but they didn't bring them up. They didn't give them stipulations. If you want to be initiated, then you have to follow these principles. You have to do this, that. No, it's just, initiation means, father was initiated by my father, your grandfather was initiated by my grandfather, so I initiate you. The spiritual substance of it was lost. It became a religious formality. So he had to be very heavy and strong in pointing out that what you think is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, it's not. It's being done. What you're doing, even the kirtan, very nice, very good, you're doing, but it's for your own pleasure. You lost the point that it's for Krishna's pleasure. You're doing it in speeches about Krishna. People like to come and hear because it's spoken in such a way that they like to hear what's spoken. Pastimes of Krishna, they like it spoken in a very pleasing way that people like to hear. But the differentiation of that which is proper from that which is not proper, that's missing. What should be done? Exactly what Krishna wants, and not what we want. That's the differentiation isn't given. And even that the kirtan has to be for, kirtan means for Krishna's pleasure, not that we enjoy nice music and someone can sing very nicely. Of course, in tradition, music and singing should be done very nicely for Krishna. But when we take it that, well, if I'm enjoying it, most people wouldn't even think about this. But if there's any motive for personal enjoyment, then these actual devotion gets lost. And Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati was very strict about this. In kirtan, what instruments were used, there's been some discussion here about harmonium. Well, there's another reason for that, because it's not an Indian instrument. And at that time in India, those who were religious purists, they wouldn't use anything. They wouldn't use any non-indigenous vegetables and fruit. They would only use the sugar that's processed in the traditional way, and everything, cloth, khadi, khadi or handloom maybe also, but not from overseas. They want to keep language. They didn't like even speaking they didn't like to mix even the Arabic and Persian words. They'd speak the Sanskritized language. Still some ideas going on, but But Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Thakur in his kirtan, because the spirit was so strong that kirtan means we all come together and we enjoy a musical performance. So he kept it to the basics. Mridanga kartals, kol kartal. And sometimes in a festival where they have big kirtan, many people have a big drum also. But kept it very simple. No harmonium in Bengal, also in kirtan, the broader kirtan culture, violins, ekta, all these, is it ektar? So they wouldn't, he didn't allow it. No, none of these things. So, why was that? Just to establish the point, everything is meant for Krishna's pleasure. And he was misunderstood also, because another point he emphasized so much was this Nirbandha Krishna. How's that verse begin? Anasaktasya vishayan yataham upayanjataha nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate, which he paraphrased that in Bengali, and that would appear on every edition of the Gauriya magazine. Let me see if I can remember. Krishna Sevai Jaha Hoy Anukul Bishoy Balaya Tage Shay Hoy Bhul, something like that. That if something can be used in Krishna's service and you reject it as being material, that's a mistake. So he was a highly enigmatic figure. He was preaching against material enjoyment in the name of Vaishnavism, but he would go in a big car, which is only for the Rajas, for very big people in those days, very people who are considered to be great sense enjoyers. And they would sleep on beds. In those days, bed means, in Bengal, bed means just some pieces of wood which are put together. Nothing fancy. But sadhus, they can't sleep on a bed. Actually, his bed was quite fancy. You can see it, Bag Bazaar, Gauriya Mart. But generally, they're just very simple. So he would use all these things for Krishna's service. And there may be others who are superficially much more renounced. And he would say they're bogus. They have the spirit of enjoyment. And he's there with leather shoes, big coat, big turban, fancy, big festival. Enigmatic. Difficult to understand. How can you understand him? Then you have to hear from him. And he emphasized this so much. Kirtan. His kirtan was mostly speaking, and speaking in a scholarly manner, a philosophical approach with highly scholarly language, which was difficult to understand. Even our own Srila Prabhupada, who was well educated by mundane standards, he said when he first heard his Guru Maharaj speak, he couldn't understand what he was saying. It was very complex way of speaking, the use of language, a lot of Sanskrit words, and the concepts also are difficult to, the kind of concepts that he introduced. For instance, to say that we should not approach Bhagavan asking him to supply fuel for the blazing fire of our material desires. In other words, we shouldn't approach Bhagavan for any material benefit. But he would say it in that way. Prabhupada put it simply, order supplier. I think he probably took that from Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Thakur also. We should not ask him to be the order supply. That we have an order. We need so much fuel for our fire. We need this, give me that. So that was one of his more simple locutions. But very scholarly, very grave, which is quite different to what was expected of Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are expected to be very emotional. We chant and sing in a voice full of feeling, cry, fall on the ground, roll on the ground, and in a crying voice say, I am the most fallen, give me your mercy. That's what's expected of Vaishnavas. But he took he had a completely different persona. That's not exactly the right word. Personality. He appeared to be very grave, not showing outwardly emotion. And this was quite different to the people he called Prakrita Sahajya. Sahajya Sampradaya was already there in Bengal, it seems by historical analysis, before the Vaishnavas came. It was a Buddhist, seems to have been Buddhism was prominent in Bengal at one time. So the Sahajya Sampradaya, and then out of that in Buddhism came Sahajayana, the path of the easy path, in which, actually natural path is better. Sahajayana is better translated like that. That we naturally have all these feelings and emotions, and we don't deny them. You feel sexual tendency, well, don't just go along with it. Don't deny it. This whole idea of trying to bottle it up, you go along with that. Go with the flow of that, and riding on that wave, you can ride to spiritual perfection. That's the idea. It's an idea that's similar in the Tantra. Well, no, actually Tantra, it's not. It's something. Anyway, these are technical things. So that Buddhist Sahajya sect became wedded. Many of them became Vaishnavas. When Buddhism was on the decline, then they became Vaishnavas. And natural feelings, emotions, and feelings for Krishna and feelings for Krishna's devotees. I'm a male, I'm in the male body, and you're a female body, Vaishnava, and I have natural feeling for you. And you can see where this all goes to. So that was the Sahajya, Prakrita Sahajya, mundane Sahajya. He grouped all of these into this generic term, Prakrita Sahajya. All of these various deviations, and everything about him was in contradistinction to the Prakrita Sahajyas. His gravitas compared to the exuberance, often false or dramatized exuberance. That's my personal observation, is a dramatized exuberance. The idea is that, well, in kirtan, or when you're hearing some Leela of Krishna, then you become emotional, you faint, you weep, you roll on the ground, and well, that's what you do. That's what it describes in Shastra. So they do it, but in the heart there's nothing there. But it's more like a show. Now, I may become much criticized for saying this. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was, how can you say it's not real? It's feeling. Well, just see. You have to see what happens when they stop being in ecstasy. Then what do? They smoke a bidi, or they eat fish, or they just talk in some normal, mundane way. So they would criticize. Who are you to criticize? They have bhav. I feel it. It's real. You can't say it's not real. I'm feeling it. You can't say, how can you say they're not great Vaishnavas? So that criticism, therefore, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur brought the point, Shastra. Everything must be understood through Shastra. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he took this from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur once he was asked to give judgment on this Ramakrishna, so-called. And Ramakrishna, he saw a Vaishnava, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he showed the Vaishnava bhav, ecstasy. Bhaktivinoda Thakur came back, and the people, he said, it's bogus. But he didn't just say it's bogus, he explained how it's bogus according to Rupa Goswami. He didn't say that. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would be more like to say it's just bogus. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur then, he analyzed these two kinds of not feeling, which people feel, but it's not proper, it's not exactly to the point. One is pratibimba, it's a reflection of the real thing. It's not the real thing, it's a reflection. And the other one is chaya, it's a shadow. It's described by Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would bring this. He's brought it all to Shastra. We have to understand this through Shastra. You can't, if you just take your feelings without reference to Shastra as given by our acharyas, then it's a boat without an anchor, and it'll just float here and there according to the current of our own personal desires. So why am I saying all this? Is this just something historical? No, it's happening now also. That's why we have to discuss these things also. It will happen unless we're firmly moored in the path of Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. Then it becomes just on the manoratha, just on the chariot of our own mind, which goes according to our senses. And it may be very subtle also. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he analyzed that sense gratification, it's not just something gross, get money, dhanam, janam, sundari. It can be very subtle also. In the name of altruism, doing good for others. In the name of religion, being very religious. These can all be covers, following tradition, serving the family. And these can all be covers for pursuing personal sense gratification. A personal motive is there. So he analyzed all of this, and he abhorred kapattata, which means cheating, that you show yourself to be very spiritual, very pure, very devoted, but it's not, it's a show. Just like I say, I've seen this in Bengal, it's people think that the show of, I think it's probably, I haven't been traveling widely in Bengal for many years, but I think it's probably changed a lot now due to the influence of ISKCON. Of course, ISKCON's not been without influence from outside also. But that it was just to make a show of bhakti was considered bhakti. They didn't know the difference. But it's the cheating propensity had become institutionalized, or just there was no. The actual spirit of bhakti was lost to the extent that people thought that making a show, and no doubt they feel something, but it's not pleasing to Krishna. And the whole idea that even if they say, oh, Krishna likes this, but the spirit of personal enjoyment comes first. It's all very subtle and psychological. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur noted that. And there's no commitment to become purified, to serve Krishna. no commitment to spread Krishna consciousness widely, bring it to others, which is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. There's nothing of that. So he demanded that of his followers. You might think that no one would come to him, but people did come to him. By his powerful preaching and by his personal example, people came to him. They didn't have to come to him. They could be Vaishnavas without going to him. If they like to be a Vaishnava, then they can go. There's so many other. You can go to Jat Gosai. At that time also this Nitai Gaur Radhe Sham thing was already going on since before Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Prabhu started his preaching. So you could take, but he pointed, that Nitai Gaur Radhe Sham movement, that might seem to be, that's also very good. Many educated young men joined them, they did many good things, but he pointed out, no, you can't just make up a mantra. You can't do that. You have no authority to do that. So he pointed out the faults in that. Kapatata, this cheating, and he also, another thing, pride. He was very much against this. Someone becomes very proud. I'm a great Vaishnava. He pointed this out. That again and again and again you'll find in his teachings. This Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Amito Vaishnav, E Buddhi Hoile, Amani na Habwami. This, if someone thinks, yes, I'm a Vaishnava. Yeah, I'm a Vaishnava. If you think like this, then there's no question of being Amani. The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Amani na, Amani. One should not desire honor. But if you think, I'm a Vaishnava, how long have you been a Vaishnava? Oh, when I first became a devotee. Oh, you hear? We say devotee, but you shouldn't say, well, I've been a devotee for 20 years now. Really? If someone says, I am a devotee, Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Thakur said that if someone says, I'm a Vaishnava, that's the first proof that he's not a Vaishnava. If you think, I'm a devotee. No, you can't say that. There's a kind of pride. Yeah, I'm a devotee. So he saw many of these Prakrita Sahajiyas as being in the words of Jiva Goswami, achikitsya. It means you can, that literally means non-treatable. It's a medical term. Chikitsa means medical treatment. You can do any medical treatment you like, but you can't cure them. So they're spiritually so diseased. Some of them, you can't do anything, but at least to point out, this is not as it should be. At the same time, he made facility for those who are willing to take treatment. Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, it's said that he was, Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Thakur was his only disciple. Actually, he did have some other disciples. That's apparent from some correspondence and this and that. But Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Thakur, he said, I'm the only disciple. Because from this we can understand that disciple, in the true sense of the term, means who is Guru Devatatma, who takes the Guru as his worshipable, as worshipable, and makes Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Kore Aika Ana Koriho Mane Asha Koro More Atmasat Bhaktivinoda Thakur prays. So whose life is one with and not different from the Guru. So Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he wasn't a preacher in the normally understood sense of the term. His preaching was to show what it actually means to be a pure devotee, completely renounced, detached from this world. That it is apparent what it means to be fully detached from this world. With Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Thakur, it might not be so apparent, not so obvious, because he built mutts and had cars and followers and so many things. But Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, he was also very, very heavy. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, as a preacher, he gave opportunities for people who caught the gist of his message, that we have to be fully committed to Krishna without any personal desire. Anya abhilasha shunya. To get to the stage of being abhilasha, anya abhilasha shunya, free from any desire other than Krishna's, acting for Krishna's pleasure. First we have to be anya abhilasha shunya, which means to have the motive to come to that platform. So he founded the Gauriya Math with that idea, that let people come in and come up. So he didn't demand perfection immediately, although he always spoke on the highest level of full commitment. Because if you don't speak like that, how are people ever going to come to that level? Unless we tell, you must come, you must give up all material desire, it's not going to work. They can go on chanting, but if they don't understand that we're supposed to be doing everything wholly and solely for Krishna's pleasure, if that's not drummed into us again and again and again and again, then we'll revert to the way of thinking that we've been carrying with us life after life, that life is meant for my own personal enjoyment. So we have to hear this again and again and again and again, but there's a treatment process. That you come in and we act, and we stay together, and we're all committed to this same project of being pure devotees and giving this idea to others. That's engagement in Krishna's service to keep us busy, because we're not at the level we can just sit down and chant all day. And even if we are, we have to go out and give that to others. So he was a reformer, but he even rejected that appellation. He said there's he at one time he said that people who think the world is in need of reform, it's not in need of any reform. The way Krishna's made it is fine. That refers to social reformation. He was a religious reformer. If we want to put some sociological label on him, which we feel required to do so we can understand, we could say he's a religious reformer. And that is required, because Ivang parampara praptam imang raja shayo viduhu sakale neha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. The pure message which comes in the parampara of our pure devotee acharyas, it becomes corrupted by, like it may be people, they're not even aware that they're doing it, but just their devotional service mixes up with some personal desire. Just one example comes to my mind. Many years ago I was in Australia, and there's very beautiful deity worship going on. I believe that was in Melbourne. That's famous since the beginning for very high standard of deity worship. So one devotee told me there that the pujari, he has a personal rule which he made for himself. And also the prasad there was worth going to Melbourne just to take. So the Kurma Prabhu, the famous, was there and training others up also. So this pujari had made a rule for himself that whatever bhog offerings that he offers to the Lord, that he personally takes on and he offers to the Lord, he won't take any of that. He won't taste any of it. That was a rule he made for himself. Otherwise, the possibility comes, you're offering it and thinking, well, that looks pretty good. I'll take a little bit after it's offered. And that also looks good. I should take some of that. Oh, and that one, my wife likes that one. I'll get some of that for her. This kind of mentality can come. And we may not even be aware. It's so subtle. And that can come in everything, in kirtan. We're singing nicely for the Lord's pleasure. And we notice others, they're also appreciating my singing. Oh, they like it when I play the harmonium like that. Oh, let's do it. It's very subtle. And then it becomes ingrained in us. Actually, I'm doing it for Krishna's pleasure. The others are also enjoying. They're Vaishnavas. I'm also enjoying. I'm also a Vaishnava. And gradually, the whole thing can become dislocated from what it's meant to be, which is for the pleasure of Krishna. And then from the subtle comes the gross. Especially bringing Krishna consciousness to the Western world, it means going in a very gross culture, and people, they're used to that kind of, and then they want, we don't like this kirtan, we like rock and roll, so we have Hare Krishna, well, it's the holy name, and people like it, but we had to think, does Krishna like it? People like it, okay, well maybe there's a case for getting people to chant Hare Krishna with rock and roll music, but we should understand that's not exactly how Krishna likes it. We have to come to the level of what Krishna likes. For bringing people to the level of what Krishna likes, we might bring them on a path which in the beginning it blends with what they like, but that is not the perfection. If we get stuck on what we like instead of what Krishna likes, then we get stuck. And there's no end to it, how degraded this can become, even in India itself. We were saying the culture's more subtle here. But then again, in the Gauriya Sampradaya and in the Vallabh Sampradaya, that was also there, that enjoying, the Guru will enjoy the young girls. Because the Guru's representing Krishna, and if he enjoys, then Krishna's satisfied. How they could get from the Rupa Goswami's teachings to that, well, how is it possible? Maya? What can we say? Illusion works in such a way. But there was this case, the Maharaja libel case in Bombay in 19th century sometime, in which the one Vallabh Sampradaya guru made a court case against one newspaper owner and editor who was writing articles against him because this guru, he would use the wives and daughters of his disciples. And the Maharaj made the case against the newspaper man, that why is he making this libel against me, this slander, this is our religious right. We're benefiting them. He lost the case. He was judged by the British, but many Indian people thought, no, he's right. It's religion. It's our culture. It's our tradition. They don't understand what is our. They're judging it by their Western ideas. That's what they thought. Many people, but it's not a question of Western or Eastern. It's a question: what does Krishna like? So this reformation is required, especially in Kali Yuga, because things degrade quickly. Kaling sattva harang pungsam. In Kali Yuga, all the Kali, the personality of Kali, the very atmosphere of Kali, destroys all good qualities. And then asatyare satya karimani. We take what is wrong to be right and right to be wrong. So that even in the name of Vaishnavism, the formalities go on. There may be temples and kirtans and festivals and initiations, but it's superficial because the spirit of fully acting for Krishna's pleasure in the manner that he wants, that's been lost. Even if we're talking about it, that I'm doing this, I writing this book offered for the pleasure of Krishna and Guru, but even if the form and substance, the form may be just perfect, but the spirit of service, of fully doing everything only for the pleasure of Krishna, if that is not there, then everything is superficial and it doesn't bring us to Krishna. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted to point this out. It's not easy because people become attached to their anarthas, to that which is not in their own self-interest. And they don't like to, it's very difficult to be told that what we are doing is not right. When we're convinced it is, I'm very good, I'm a very good devotee, I'm very pious, and I'm a very good devotee. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur pointed out all the faults. Someone is singing very nicely. And there was one assembly, he described this before he started the Gauriya Math. He was at some Hari Sabha meeting of devotees. Someone was singing very nicely. Everyone appreciated. He criticized. And people were shocked. What is this singing? He's singing, someone's singing in a nice voice. Oh, Krishna, come to me. What is this, you come to me? He's not your gardener, he has to come, you call him. You're not his boss that you come. And people are shocked. How can he speak like this? All the Vaishnavas are here. They've all got tilak, neck beads, they're all initiated, they're all appreciating this nice singing. And what does he know? He was Calcutta, went to the English schools. What does he know about Vaishnava? So he was on his own practically in the beginning. It's not easy. He was just standing against everything. At one point he retired early. After going to the Kashim Bazaar, Sammelani, the Maharaja Nandi, Bahadur Nandi, he called Siddhanta Saraswati. You come, there's a meeting of Vaishnavas. But they wouldn't let him, he was called, and if he's called, what's he going to do there? The others are speaking and singing, and but they wouldn't let him speak. Maharaj Nandi sent prasad every day, so many items. He'd take one tulsi leaf, that's all. And why aren't you taking? Because it's not offered in a spirit of proper service to the Lord. Therefore it's not prasad. The Lord doesn't accept. He didn't eat for 3 days. Finally they gave him 5 minutes to talk. You can speak for 5 minutes. That's all. And the topic, you have to speak about the Purama temple in Navadvip, the temple of Durga in Navadvip. That was the subject given to him. But anyway, he spoke for about 2 minutes and they stopped him. Because they knew that what he was going to say would not be to their taste. Then he became apparently discouraged. What can I do? I have to speak. They won't let me speak. They're adamantly against. They won't allow it. They don't want to hear the truth. They're so completely against it. So he went back to Mayapur. He had been sent to Mayapur by Bhaktivedanta Thakur to oversee the affairs at the Jogpit. He had a few disciples had gathered around him. Then, so he appeared to be somewhat despondent. He had started writing a commentary on Upadeshamrita of Rupa Goswami. He stopped. He just went on with his daily activities. He appeared to be somewhat despondent. Then one night in a dream, a dreamlike state, he had a vision of his own guru had passed away, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, they just passed away. 1913 and 1914, and this was just 1 or 2 years after that. And he had a dream of them, all the acharyas, Panchatattva, they all came and said, you go on, you preach, you don't worry, we're with you. Then again, he picked up his spirit. It's not easy to fight against the whole world where everyone says, you're an offender. How can you criticize? These are all great Vaishnavas. Everyone knows they're great Vaishnavas. How can you criticize? It's not easy to do so, especially alone. I'm experiencing this in a very small way compared to what he did, that it's very difficult to be in Vaishnava society and try to point out for the benefit of the whole Vaishnava society when something is not proper. It's difficult to do so. It's much easier to just meet with everyone, say, Hari Bol, how are you? Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha, everything wonderful. It's not easy, but he stood his whole life fighting against all these wrong things. And he's known for that. Although actually his real purpose was Gopidhana Katha Kirtan. Hridaye Balila Kebab, Doyeta Dashera Sheva, Gopidhana Katha Kirtan. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said about him, which he later recorded in his own poem, that someone said within my heart that the kirtan of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is the speaking, particularly speaking, not so much singing, speaking topics of concerning the wealth of the gopis. So it's the wealth of the gopis is Krishna. Or just one thing I'll just say to finish now. Just recently I was reading some transcribed lectures of Srila Prabhupada which have recently been released. We all know that the poem that Srila Prabhupada offered, the English poem to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, as a Vyasa Puja offering, that pleased Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur very much, especially the lines, absolute is sentient, thou hast proved, impersonal calamity thou hast removed. This Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he especially appreciated this. Prabhupada said that, in one lecture, he said that from the very beginning of my life, I was raised in Krishna consciousness, to know that Krishna is God, Krishna is a person. But later in my youth, in bad association in the college years, I got some idea of him, somewhat impersonal tendency, he said. But it didn't satisfy my heart. Then when I heard Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explain that no, the truth is Krishna. Krishna is a person. Krishna is not dead. Then I became very glad. And therefore, I made this impersonal. So he was saying even in his own life, that impersonal calamity thou hast removed. So that's interesting anecdote, snippet. Hare Krishna. Any question? Any question? The answer is probably in here. 3 volumes. Actually, I just thought this morning, did I put the term Prabhu Santan? I have to check and see. And Hare Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Ashtotar Zata Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. So So we should reconvene at 12 o'clock. Please come at 5 to 12, not 5 past 12. Yeah. Garlands? Anyone like?